This is a quick recap of the VRS and VRI module that we've been following. One of the three tracks we were following in this class, and also a fun fact. Fun fact is that I recorded this as a series of modules for the El Camino College Interpreter Training Program, and it's actually part of their lab hours that the students do for their program. So very quickly, to go back to VRS, Video Relay Service, this is a service that is regulated by the FCC. This is where there's an interpreter on the line interpreting phone calls. Sometimes they call the interpreter a communications assistant. Sometimes people call them an operator. This is just to make the distinction that the interpreter is only there to function as the interpreter for phone calls. The important thing is that VRS is intended to provide a functional equivalence to a hearing person's ability to use the phone. So it's anything you can think of in a phone call, but it is not intended to replace the responsibility to provide an interpreter. This is why people cannot be in the same room. And so an interpreter will often disconnect a call if there are people in the same room using the VRS interpreter. And so if you think to the example that we had before, VRS is for any phone call. Ordering food, making travel plans, calling your family members, calling somebody in the next room even, anything you would use the phone for. VRI is exactly the opposite, meaning the one thing VRS can't do is interpret for people in the same room. That's the one thing VRI is doing. And often it's the interpreter who's the only person not in the room. Usually it's the interpreter who's on screen and people are, in their meeting setting or medical setting, etc. VRS is paid for and provided by and regulated by the FCC, and VRI is a for-profit business offered by various agencies and sometimes by an independent interpreter. And so a quick simulation for you to think about is you've arrived at your workstation a few minutes early. First, you ensure that you're in a professional working environment. There's no one in the room with you. If you have a landline, you turn the ringer off. I used to actually turn the doorbell off at my old home because it was a very loud doorbell when somebody rang it. And I would turn it off in order to do my shift, my VRI shift. You should also check your camera and make sure that it's got the right picture, the right lighting, etc. And then launch your applications, which means sign in to whatever it is that you need to sign in for your specific agency or workplace. So again, always check your video. You want to make sure that the first call you take captures exactly what you want to show and doesn't capture anything extra. And as the slide says, don't be caught surprised on your first call. Just check the video, check the picture before you actually start. And so think about how much time do you need before you actually start your VRI shift. I used to like to pull up dictionaries such as wordreference.com. This is for when I was working in trilingual settings. And think about what other things you might like to have, maybe even just a dictionary to look things up, or your whiteboard at your station, your pen and paper, a drink, etc. And often, agencies that are hiring you for VRI work are not necessarily in the California area. So they may tell you you have an appointment at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So what time does that mean you need to be at your workstation in your time zone? So now here's some quick questions for you, and you should do a short practice of what your response will be. you take a video call and the client wants to start immediately. What do you say? How about you don't have a good video of the consumer as soon as you answer? What would you say to them then? You can see them, but you can't hear them. How can you get them to change their settings? Or you have a perfect connection. Here's some suggestions. The client wants to start immediately, and I might say, sim comment. Hello, I want to introduce myself first. My name is Arlene Novice, and I'll be interpreting for you. I'm ready when you are. Could you adjust the webcam so I can see his face and his hands? That way I can get facial expression and gestures. Here's when I might use my trusty whiteboard and say to them, please check your audio settings, or please restart your computer. Or I might even offer them a phone number to tech support if the agency provides it. But if it's a perfect connection, I might just go ahead and say, thank you for using our service. My name is Arlene Narvaez, and I'll be interpreting for you. You can start when you're ready. That concludes the VRI module.